Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. Today, we're making a sour symphony when we compare a fierce and fruity Flanders Red with a good old Bruin. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello, hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. Now, this might be one of my favourite beer styles. Although, when people ask me what my favourite beer style is, I don't say a Flanders Red.
No, I don't. I don't think anyone ever... I feel like it is the silent assassin.
Yeah.
Like, where people like, when someone takes that out, you feel fancy as fuck when you're someplace and someone's like, let's drink a Flanders Red. You're like, oh, okay, let's go. And you're like, fancy glass. And it's always so complex, always so interesting. And it just makes you feel like you're in the upper echelon, like 100%. I know I feel that way. And it is that thing, but like, no one ever goes, oh yeah, this is my favourite style. That's been like,
right.
Oh, my favourite brand of clothing is Versace. No one says that.
No one says that. You're not cool if you say Versace.
That. If somebody offered it to you, you'd be like, hell yeah, I feel fancy.
Right?
I would say it's the Versace of beers. Said it.
The Versace of beers. There we go. So today we are talking about Flanders Red and Flanders Brown. What is the difference? We're going to let you know. Is there a difference? I mean, these are Belgian beers. You know what those Belgian brewers are like? They like to do whatever they fancy. I mean, so we shall find out.
I legitimately do not know. So
it's okay. I do.
As per usual, I have done no research because I just want to learn. I'm here to learn. That's what I want to do.
We haven't done like a proper beer style one in a little bit, so
yeah, and we
felt
haven't
like
had
it was
Holy
time.
Goat for like a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know I love Holy Goat, so
you do.
Yeah.
So this has all come from one of my favourite beers, which is why it surprised me that I don't go, oh yeah, Flanders Red, because Duchesse De Bourgogne is one of my all-time favourite beers, and that is a Flanders Red. Would you say it's one of your all-time favourite beers, Tori Powell?
Duchess specifically, or Flanders Red as a whole?
Duchess specifically.
I really love. So I don't know. It's really difficult. I don't know if I could say it's one of my all-time favourites because I feel like that is such a big question for me.
Really?
I am so like all-time favourites. I really, I will change my mind 7,000 times over, and it's like, what's the weather today? Oh, that's my favourite today. But I really do like Duchess, and I just think for me, just Flanders Red as a whole, it is another one where it's like, oh, I really quite like it as a style, because to me it is that complexity, that interesting element to it, and I really like that. And part of the reason this came out was because I was like, we were trying to go, oh, what could we sort of do episodes on? We're like, we haven't really talked a lot about Flanders Red. Like, what could we talk about that we haven't really talked about? And Flanders Red was one of the ones that came up. And what's really funny is I was like, I have so many Flanders Reds because I hold on.
That's a direct quote.
I was like, I have so many, and the reason I had so many was because I would be like, I'd get them because I love. Like, again. Is it a favourite of mine? I would say the style, yeah, probably is up there. And it makes me feel luxurious. It makes me feel like cream of the crop. And I always feel like it needs to pair with cheese.
Yeah.
So
it is
what happens
like
is I'd get them.
Ultimate beer and cheese pairing beer.
Yeah, and I'd get them, and then I'd be like, I cannot wait to try this and see how like interesting it tastes, and what they did with this one, and how that shifted the taste and made it a different type of complex, and just to see. But then I'd also be like, but I'm not in the mood for cheese right now, and so that they'd get sort of like put on the shelf until when I drink this style of beer, I really like to sort of take it all in. I don't like to do it when it's like a session. Like if I'm sessioning beers and I'm socialising, like that's not the right setting. Socialising with someone like if we were socialising, it was just the two of us and it was casual and more intimate setting, more intimate conversation than like I'm having a barbecue. I'm probably not popping open bottles and cans of Flanders Red. So I would always kind of like have them ready to go. And then we're like, great, we can do this episode. And I went looking, and I legitimately, the week before, I had drank almost exclusively all of the ones that I had.
She's done a Flanders Red week, as you do.
And that's when and then that sort of evolved where I've got this one from Holy Goat, and that could make for something interesting. And we're like, yeah, that could make for something interesting. Let's go with that.
It's the way. It's always the way.
I do like a Duchess. I think the first time I had Duchess was with you, because everyone would talk about it, and it's just, I feel like Duchess is such a controversial beer, because I feel like people love it or hate it, and there's very little in between. It's either you have a taste for it or you're like immediately no. There's nobody that kind of goes, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
It's definitely a divisive beer. I think that's true. It is very complex. It's not, it's not the beer that you give to someone you're just trying to coax over to beer, that's for sure.
Like, come and try the finest of craft beers, and then you're like, drink this. And
drink this.
Like, what is this?
Definitely
no
not
context. That. You're just like, this is a really, really good example of a style. Like, people would be like, what are you even giving me right now?
Why are you giving me this as my first craft beer? No, not at all. I think when I had it first, again, I'd heard a lot of people talking about it, and I was like, oh, what is this beer that they keep talking about? And I think I saw it in a bottle shop and was like, oh, that's that beer. I'm going to get one of those. Or it was I put it in like an online order or something, and tasted it and was like, yeah, because sometimes people are like, this is the best beer ever, and then you taste it and you're like, is it? Okay, cool. I mean, it's nice, like, but I tried this and I was like, the hype is real. I really enjoy this. This is right up my street. Thank you very much. I've also had, I don't know if you've had, they also have a cherry version and a cherry chocolate version.
I have the cherry chocolate one. I haven't drank it yet, but I have it.
These are also...
I haven't tried the cherry. I had to make decisions, had to be made. And I was like, I think I asked you, I was like, I can go cherry or I can go cherry chocolate, which one? And then you were like, they're both really good. And then I think you edged me towards cherry chocolate.
Yeah.
Like, all right, done.
Yeah, they are. If you see those as well and you enjoy a Duchess and you've not had those, I do encourage you to get those, because they are... just adds a few more layers of complexity to the whole thing. I enjoy it. I mean, I just enjoy them. I enjoy them.
Part of me, so I completely agree with you on like that. I don't feel like they're overhyped. I feel like they're the right level of hyped. But I wonder if part of me feels like, because I think we can both think of the same exact beer where we tried and we've gone, yeah, it's fine, it's good.
Yeah,
it's a great execution. Yeah, it's a great execution. Like, it's fine. But I think when somebody hypes something up to like the nth degree, it has to live up to that. And sometimes you just kind of go, oh, it's like, if you hadn't given me any hype, I would go, oh, I really enjoy this, it's really good.
Yeah.
But because I've gone into it with the level of hype that's there, I'm now going, I'm looking at it more critically, and I'm like expecting to have my socks blown off, and then I try it and I go, oh, no, I mean, it's good, but I've had other things that I feel are equally good.
Yeah.
Or, you start taking a real critical look at it. And I feel like with Duchess, or I think with the style as a whole, really. Yeah. But especially with Duchess, because that's the kind of probably the most popular of them. I think because you have the divisiveness there, where you have some people saying it's amazing and some people saying, yeah, no, immediately no, run. I think that offers a lot of sort of difference in opinion, where you're not going in, where you're kind of already on the fence of, am I going to like this? Am I going to hate it the first time you have it? And I also think that when people say it's really good, because of the complexities of it and the way people have to explain it, it's a lot harder to go in with a false expectation. Yeah. In my opinion, I think it's a lot harder to go into a false expectation of what you're going to get from it, because of the way you have to describe it. It's
not just like, it's not just like, oh, here's a beer, is it? Like, when you're going to say, give someone a Flanders Red, you've got to be like, this is a sour beer, and it kind of tastes like balsamic vinegar, and it's it's got kind of this fruitiness to it, and you can't just give. I mean, you can. you could just give this beer to someone and be like, ha ha.
I would argue, I love it, but I would argue it would be really mean to do that.
I feel so. I feel like if you were just like, here, drink this, like without kind of giving people a bit of an idea of what they're about to put in their mouth, like that would be mean.
I think that's that thing of like, I'm
also
wanting you to like it.
So exactly. Massive injustice to the beer. Like this fantastic beer, if you're just going to give it to someone and be like, huh? Just drink this.
Yeah,
and
I feel like
they're
I want you
to
like it. I want you to like it, so I want you to know what to expect so you can brace yourself and brace your taste buds.
Yeah.
And you're not going to go into it going, oh. And I think that like, with other styles, you could go, oh, lots of bitterness, lots of, pininess, lots of juice, lots of this. And, and that sort of could be, there's so many, not that there's a lot of different ways to interpret that, but you can almost kind of go, this is what it is, and someone in their head can go, oh, I'm expecting this level of amazingness with how you're talking about it.
They'll have like a frame of reference.
Whereas this is so specific that when you go in, you're probably already going, oh, I don't know. So you're not going into it going, is this going to be the king of all, or the queen of all, the duchess of all?
The duchess
of all things. Of all things. You kind of go into it a little bit like, oh, all right, let's see how this goes. And I think that probably helps as well to not overhype it, so that when you do go into it, you go, actually, all the good things people have said about it, for me, those are what stand out.
All right, before we go into talking about what a Flanders Red actually is, should we crack this beer?
Yeah.
So I've got my fun Duchess glass.
I don't have one, so
it's got a little Duchess on the stem, which I really like.
That one is cute. I like that.
And cute. I picked this up at Beer Central in Sheffield. Hi, Beer Central. We love getting beers from you when we're up that way.
I will say, as we're pouring this, what I find really interesting as well. So talking about it being just such a, for me, an upper echelon of beer.
Yeah.
Like it's just, like I said, it feels fancy. It feels like the Versace of the beer world.
Yeah.
But what's really funny is like I feel like I always expect that when I buy one, it's going to be really expensive.
Yeah, and it's not, is it?
£4.
Yeah, like it's not
even.
It's
and
not.
like okay, yeah, I think it's 330ml. I think.
Yeah, it's only they only come in
330ml.
Like, I feel like you can get magnums of them, like you can get 750 bottles, like you can get
you absolutely can, but
big bottles of them.
But you can very easily pick up just the 330ml like normal size bottles, and even the variations, the chocolate cherry and the cherry, even those, like 100%, they're like sub £5. Yeah, and I'm always expecting them to be. Because they're, I always expect them to be expensive, and then you go to buy them and you're like, oh, they're actually not expensive. Right, I'm going to have to stick with my pleb glass. It's not, I mean, you got me the glass, it's not. But I don't have a fancy Duchess glass, so...
I do love my Duchess glass. This is one of those ones that, because, all the Belgian beers have their own glasses. So this was one of those, and I have a lot of glassware, and at some point you've got to, like... Stop.
Don't say it.
Because I'm running out of space. But I was like, I am having a Duchess glass that I can drink it out because
need to stop. You just need to make more space. And I think that's probably why you got the best head pour on it, is you have the right glass for it.
I've got the right glass. Right, so as it is a Flanders Red, it is kind of chestnutty red in colour.
I was going to say chestnutty is what I've got.
It's got a nice foamy beige head.
Not for me.
Lots of carbonation bubbles, actually. Very streamy.
It's hard to see in my lighting, annoyingly. But yeah.
And it's got that lovely, like, the aroma is sour.
Yeah. I would say, like, that balsamic, like, in that aroma, for sure.
Definitely balsamic. Fruity, almost like red wine, like
vinous almost.
Yeah, vinous.
I wouldn't say like full vinous, but I think it's because of that sour balsamic-y like aroma that you get.
Yeah.
That sort of can go with some wines. Like that just is what sort of amps up that sort of vinous element.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going in.
Oh, feels wrong. I want cheese.
I love this. This is like, the flavours just make me happy. Like, it's got, considering there's a lot of, like, you can see the carbonation bubbles, I feel like it's quite
I was gonna say
smooth.
I was literally
and
just about to say that. I was just about to say those exact things. Weirdly, we've been on the same wavelength for the last 48 hours.
We literally have.
Typing things and sending them the exact same things. But no, exact same. I was gonna say, like, despite what you think it's gonna taste like, it actually is a little bit more mellow and smooth and just, like you said, rounded than what you're expecting. And it's not, despite its like having that almost like sour smell to it, it's not like super acidic. Like it's not sometimes when you have like very complex like soured beers, sometimes you can almost get like so much of that acidity that you just kind of go, I know this is probably going to give me heartburn later, but this isn't like that. It is very just such well balanced, and there's so much going on with the flavours. Yeah,
I feel like that's partly to do with the malt profile. Like, it's got a slightly darker malt profile, which, you know, adds. There's a little bit of, almost in the back, there's almost a little bit of nuttiness, and then there's that like fruity balsamic vinegar flavour. But it's like, all, as you said, it's all really nicely balanced. Like, none of it is kind of hitting you in the face too much. Like, it's drinkable.
Yeah, the nuttiness, I would. That was one thing that was on sort of my radar to say as well, was that there was a nuttiness, and I almost actually sort of got it a little bit in the aroma as well. Like, when you're smelling it for a few minutes, you kind of go, once you sort of adjust to the aroma of that, like, balsamic-y, you know, scent, and you start kind of going, okay, let's get a little bit deeper in there now. Like, you do start to get almost, for me, I got a little bit of nuttiness, like sort of towards the back end of that like smell as well.
Yeah.
And then when you taste it, you go, yeah, that's there. Yeah, it's just really, like I said, I get sad. I really want cheese with it. But it's because I think, you know why it pairs really well? It's like when you have a hard cheese. I know that you're like, oh, with this it's gonna go with blue cheese.
Blue.
No, but for me, I like to think of like a parmesan or something, because like when you have parmesans on a charcuterie board, and then you have that, I have the
balsamic glaze.
And I like to put a little bit of balsamic glaze on there, and that's sort of like what this gives me, is that balsamic glaze. So I always go hard cheese, Italian cheese. Like, yes, that's perfect.
And I think a mature vintage cheddar, like the ones that have almost got those like salt crystals in them, goes really well with this, because where it's got that sweetness, you then got that saltiness. Like, nice. Yeah,
I'm just about nice vintage cheddar, like, full stop, all the time. That's like almost exclusively what I'm here for. I feel fancy even sitting here right now. This almost feels too fancy for me to even sit here with a grubby, you know, hoodie on and out of this. I feel like I need to have one of those big, nice, like, stemmed wine glasses or something. Goblet. I should have used my goblet. I almost used my goblet.
Yeah.
My stagger in the good one.
It does need a goblet. That is true.
So anyways, do you want to enlighten us on, before we sit here and talk more shit, do you want to enlighten us on sort of what is a Flanders Red?
I mean, so pretty much what we've just said are the tasting notes for it. It is, the BJCP says it's a sour, fruity, red wine-like Belgian-style ale with interesting, supportive malt flavours and fruit complexity. That's pretty much what we just said. It's got a dry finish, and tannin completes the mental image of a fine red wine. So it's all the wine feels on this one. So get your red wine mates out, because they might drink this one as well with you.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, though? Because I think when we typically look at sort of, when we look at it, when we do cocktails, for example, and we go, would someone that likes this cocktail enjoy this beer, and so on and so forth. Yeah. If we sort of look at, from my opinion, if we sort of look at this of like, would a red wine drinker enjoy this? I kind of feel like, again, it comes into that whole, does that red wine drinker appreciate sour elements? Because
That's true, yeah.
if it's a person that really likes red wine and they also enjoy sort of more sour notes to things, I would go, yeah, that's great. At least try it. Especially if they are a person that is like me and really likes balsamic glaze and on things and those tastes, I would go, yeah, great, try it. If it's someone that just doesn't handle anything sour very well, I would go, I'm not sure that would sell it to them. But there are enough of those red wine notes there that if they like both things, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want a little bit of history about it?
You know I do.
Yeah, so this beer is indigenous to West Flanders, which is the area of Belgium. It is felt that is typified by the products of the Rodenbach brewery. So actually, Duchess isn't one. Though this is a classic example of it, it's not what's felt to be like the first and the most characteristic one of it. Anything from the Rodenbach brewery. I do have a Rodenbach Grand Cru that I might crack in a minute so that we can see the differences between the two. That brewery was established in 1820 in West Flanders and used, traditional brewing techniques. We got to remember that, back in the day before, we had clean yeast strains and before we had the ways of roasting malts and things that we have today, a lot of beers would have been this kind of colour because of the malts that were being created. They'd probably have a little bit of a smoky note to them. They might have a bit of a sour note to them because also hops weren't being used as well. This is not a beer that uses a huge amount of hops, and the ones that are used in it tend to be continental hops. They're really just being used for a little bit of bitterness against that sweetness and for preservative reasons. And it is not only fermented with regular brewer's yeast, so Saccharomyces, but it can also have lactobacillus, Brettanomyces, and Acetobacter. Acetobacter is the one that's going to give you those lovely, like, vinegary notes, which is quite important in this style, particularly in the Duchess, because it has that lovely balsamic vinegar note. And those can be, like, lingering around in the oak foeders that it is generally aged in. So it is thought that this style kind of originated because back before hops were being used, I believe we've talked about this before, but back before hops there was a mixture of spices that were put into beer that was called gruit, and this was used to try and extend the shelf life of the beer. Like, older beers would sour quite quickly because there wasn't that preservative that we get from hops nowadays. So they would do kind of a mixture of adding in these spices to kind of cover up the sourness. But they also started doing where they would mature the beer in oak cask for a period of time to make it sour. And this would then make it preserve longer because we know the sours can sit there for a while and change over time. But then to make it nice and tasty, because you don't want to be just drinking this weird sour beer, they would then blend it with younger beer. So then from the younger beer you get that lovely fruitiness because it's fresh, and from the sour beer you get kind of the oakiness, those sour notes that you like. So this is how these beers kind of came about, by brewers trying to make their beer last longer when there wasn't the proper preservatives in place. So that's how Flanders Red came about. Flanders Brown is an offshoot of this. Well, it can actually be argued that they're the same thing. As they are both Belgian beers, we know that the Belgian brewers like to do as they please. They don't believe in these beer style categories. They're like, what are you talking about? I just want to make a beer. I'm going to make the beer that I want.
I really vibe with that.
Yeah, I do too.
That is, I genuinely feel like that is that speaks to me. That's like when people go, there's no such thing as a black IPA or
right.
a white stout, and I'm like, yeah, there is. Just
Like,
Fuck
just
off.
make it,
There is.
right?
There is. Just
Like,
do it. If you want to make it, just make it.
Stifling creativity? But like, also as someone that has spent a lot of time trying to learn beer styles for exams, like, it's a lot. And even then, you can like pick up the beer that's like supposed to be like typical, and you're like, this doesn't fit into those little guidelines that you're saying. Or
that's what I love the most. That is what I love the most.
Yeah, exactly. So beer styles.
Know the rules to break it.
Right, beer styles. Yeah, whatever with your beer styles, whatever. But so you may see beers that are called Oud Bruin. That's an Oud Brown, which is also known as a Flanders Brown. So they can be very similar to a Flanders Red. When I was doing my Cicerone training, where the Cicerone and BJCP say the line is that a Flanders Red is from the west of Flanders, and they were brewed in oak. They are fermented in oak casks or oak foeders, whereas an Oud Bruin is fermented in steel, and so that changes the profile a bit. So once we've had a little bit of this Duchess, we will be having an Oud Bruin as well, and see if we can see some of those differences.
We will indeed. I mean, do you want to have more of this? Do you want to move?
I think we can have a bit more about this. So I've got a little bit of a rundown of because of the way that these beers are brewed, and like the uncertainties of bacterial fermentation. Like you're not necessarily going to get it the same every time, or between different batches. I've got a little bit of rundown of the different ways that well-known Flanders Reds, what their flavour profiles are. So we were talking about Brodenbach Grand Cru. They tend to be heavy on the tart red fruits in their version. Duchess that we're drinking now, it says, has like dark figs macerated in vinegar and sweetened with molasses. How do you feel about that description?
So when you started and you said the figs, I was like, I don't know. But then as you went on, I was like, maybe.
Like, I feel a bit more cherry, like dried cherry, than fig.
I do feel more cherry as well than fig, but it was when you kind of said about the other elements coming into play that I was like, okay.
Vinegar and molasses, I can get behind that.
And I think maybe fig once it had all that in it, potentially, but I do still think more cherry.
Yeah, and then a version that the brewery from the US creates, which is called Oud Tart, tends to have hints of leather and oak with complex dark fruits.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, we might have to see if we can get one of those at some point. Look that out. Let us know if you can get us an Oud Tart. We'd like to try that.
That does sound really, really quite interesting, to be fair.
I don't think I've got any like fun facts about Flanders Red, unfortunately.
I don't either. My fun fact was that I thought really quickly. Normally I get to do more research before an episode, but I've had such an insane week at work, which I feel like I deserve this. Insane week, insane month, insane year. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna try our old friend ChatGPT just to revisit, to go, will this actually help me? Can I actually use this to make research a lot easier? Let's give it a go. And it pulled up 4 total quote unquote fun facts. 3 were just straight up facts.
Yeah,
and 4,
similar to what I've just said.
Pretty much identical to what you just said. And then number 4 just said share, as in like
turn back timeshare,
as in like snap out of it, share, as in that share.
I'm really intrigued as to what the connection between a Flanders Red and share is now.
I don't know if it was trying to say something else. Like it was trying to say like cherries or something.
Oh, maybe.
And it just went, nope. And it just stopped with share. But actually, I really appreciated it so much more for just being like, fact number 1, very legitimate fact.
Yeah.
Not fun, just a fact. Fact number 2, again, very legitimate. Number 3, super legitimate. Number 4, share.
Just share.
just share. There was no punctuation. It was just share.
If you, dear listeners, can tell us what the link is between share and Flanders Red, please let us know. We are so intrigued by what this is about.
I do think it sort of demonstrates, to go back to our AI episode, that you can't rely 100% on AI here. I mean, you still have to. You can't cut corners. You still have to do the legwork yourself.
There's got to be some person input in there.
But I did feel like I had to share that. I had to share it.
Hey! There we go. That was good.
But yeah, I was saying as well, like, I forget how much I love the Duchess until I just go, I really like it, and then I have it, and then I go, oh, yeah, I love it. Yeah. Actually, if we had cracked it open and then you went, would you say this is one of your favourite styles?
You would.
Yeah, I'd probably go.
You're changing your mind now, aren't you?
Yeah, because I think again, it's so, for something that tastes so phenomenal, and it's just so interesting, and it's just overall just great. I feel like it's one of the styles that are the quickest and easiest to forget about. And I think it's because you don't just come across it on a regular basis. Yeah. So you don't really think about it. And then when you have one, it's been so long since you've had another one that you just go, oh yeah, I like these, let's have one. And then you have it and you go, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
Have you ever had it on draft?
No.
I've had it on draft.
I think where I went to in Greece that time, that was a Belgian bar. I think they had some stuff that was on tap, and I want to say they had a Duchess on tap, but they might have just had bottles of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I had limited time, so I went with things that I didn't go with that one. But I think it might have just been bottles. I don't know, but I bet it's amazing.
Oh, I had it on draft at Leeds International Beer Festival. It was so good. Like, just because, it's smooth already, but then having it on draft just gave it, it was good stuff. If you see it on draft, highly recommend.
Very much recommend.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still having FOMO over cheese. Like, I can't. Let's crack open the next one, because I'm like,
right.
The more I'm doing it, the more I'm like, I just want to go eat cheese. So we gotta move our way through it so I can go and have cheese with it. It feels wrong. It genuinely feels wrong that I'm not pairing it with cheese.
All right, so we now have an Oud Bruin.
Which, interestingly, according to Untapped, says it's a Flanders one. Which that's interesting.
So yeah, Oud Bruin is the same thing as a Flanders Brown, basically. And this is Blood Witch from Holy Goat. Look at that label.
I love Holy Goat for their labels.
Yeah.
I love, no, not just for their labels, but they are, for me, they are like, I want to say triple threat, but now I've got to think of a third thing. But their labels are great.
Yeah.
I'm going to say triple threat, because I'm going to do this, right? Their labels are great. Their sizing is good, because it's 375, so it's just just enough to, slightly more than the 330ml.
Yeah.
But also, like, the bottle shape looks great. And they always make really interesting things. Like, there's very rarely, I had to stop myself from putting in an order because I really wanted what they just put out for the label.
Oh, yeah, the newest batch.
Because there was cinnamon in it. And I was
was it the Tapache?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted it so bad, but I couldn't justify doing a bit. Because basically, when you order it, when you put an order in, you kind of have to justify it by ordering enough to make it worthwhile. And I was like, I just want that one. I mean, I want all of them, but if I could just order one, it would be that one. And there's cinnamon in it, and the label is very me, and I love it. And I couldn't do it, but I love Holy Goat. They are probably still. I don't say it easily. Like, it's not easy enough to say for any brewery, because I like so many breweries, but they are easily somebody I have no association to, but are one of my top sort of favourites.
Like,
I like to pick, when I like to pick my tops, I like to pick somebody I don't have association to. When I kind of say, here's somebody that I don't know that is my top, it's definitely Holy Goat.
Yeah. Like, I don't think I've ever had bad beer from them, ever. Like, it's always
been so. I don't think I've ever seen
interesting,
one that's been, like, boring.
Yeah, interesting, well made, delicious. Like, and I just love that every bottle says "Drink young or age. This will get weirder."
Yeah. All their artwork is just so
Yeah, it works great
as well.
Yeah.
I wish they would do
So
prints. If they would do prints of them,
Yeah.
I would literally just buy the prints of the labels and put them all over my walls.
so this is an Oud Bruin with Scottish strawberries, because obviously Holy Goat is from Scotland, so that's gonna like change up the flavour profile a little bit because it's got strawberries in it. But
And I love strawberries, so I'm very excited.
yeah, you're the big strawberry person.
Love
I like strawberries. Raspberries I prefer, but I mean,
For
I'll
me,
take a
strawberries and peaches, both of those just amazing.
I also like that they've usually got like a good chunk of information on the label as well. So this one says, this beer takes inspiration from the historic Belgian style of Oud Bruin, sharing similarities to the Flanders Red and British stock ale. Our version is primary fermented with a Brettanomyces forward mixed culture and blended from 2 different batches with an average age of 4 months. We incorporated our favourite rye, crystal and light roasted malts in addition to Brewer's Invert Sugars No. 2, a specialist sugar used historically in the UK and Belgium, in dark, strong ales providing unique caramel and treacle flavours. We then re-fermented this blended Oud Bruin on 150 grams per litre of Scottish strawberries sourced from farms located within 60 miles of our brewery. All like local,
Drink your age and this
sourced.
will get weirder.
Amazing. Right. Should we crack this bad
And
boy?
you had your Duchess glass. I've got
Yeah.
my Holy Goat.
You've got a Holy Goat one. I don't have a Holy Goat one, so I'm just on my little taster glass as well.
Oh. Oh, it smells amazing already. And it looks nice.
Oh God, that smells amazing. It smells like a strawberry milkshake. So already, can you see like?
Beauty.
I mean, considering it's called
They're
an
very-
Oud Bruin, it is very red.
They're very similar colours.
Yeah. It's. I think
would
the head
say-
is a bit more yellow.
And I would, so my head dissipated quite quickly. The thing that I'd say I noticed the difference of is I would say maybe it's just the glassware, but to me the Duchess looks clearer.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The Blood Witch is a little bit murkier, but I wonder if that's with all like the
Fruit.
fruit.
Yeah. Right, so I don't think we're going to get a very good impression of the flavour profile of an Oud Bruin from this because you can smell them strawberries
It smells like jam.
straight away. I mean, it smells
Jammy.
amazing, but you're not going to get the classic flavours of an Oud Bruin from this,
At
which
this
is
point.
not necessarily a problem, but
I don't care at this point because it smells like strawberry jam.
it does
smells
smell like strawberry jam.
Strawberry and champagne jam, and I love that.
Yeah. And I can smell like the treacle.
I'm just waiting for like the little seeds. Like I'm waiting to drink this and get the little like strawberry seeds.
All right.
Put some nuts with it, and then you'd get like the peanut butter jelly effect. 'Cause
Ooh.
that's what it.
That's more sour than I was expecting it to be.
Yes, that's why I went for a second sip just to double check. It's not as full on strawberry as it smells.
No, it is not.
It's interesting.
It's got a bit of you can tell that there's rye in it. Like it's got that slightly smoky
Yeah,
spiciness to it. It's making me think of leather
it's quite
and tobacco.
I was gonna say tobacco, and it's quite dry.
Yeah.
There's like
Yeah,
a
it's
very
not as
heavy
sweet as it
dryness.
smells.
It's like me saying about the smell reminds me of strawberry and champagne jam that you, like the artisanal jams you can get, and like that's true. That taste has that like dry, like that champagne dryness to it. Yeah, it's nice.
It's much drier than the Duchess.
Yeah, I would say the Duchess actually almost has more sweet fruitiness. Like there's almost more sweetness in the Duchess, a little bit more fruitiness, and it's almost a bit. I think it's almost a bit like smoother in its taste, whereas this is a lot more dry, and the fruit is more so in the aroma than it is in the taste. But it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I would actually say, arguably, if I'm going to give again, probably still has to be someone that enjoys tartness, but I actually think this has more like almost wine-like quality.
Yeah, because of the
A little bit
dryness.
more so.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. Oh, actually, do you want to know the actual flavour profile of an Oud Bruin?
Yeah, let's see how far this strays.
So it's described as a malty, fruity, aged, somewhat sour Belgian-style brown ale. That's a much shorter description than the Flanders Red was. Right, so in flavour, it should be malty with fruity complexity and typically some caramel character. I mean, so I think that's where it strays from the Flanders Red, because Flanders Red is more of that kind of dried fruits, balsamic kind of note, whereas the Oud Bruin has more of that caramel flavour to it. You might get fruitiness in dried fruits, raisins, plums, figs, dates, black cherries, prunes. There should be a high malt character, caramel, toffee, orange, treacle or chocolate. Slightly sour, but it will become more pronounced in aged examples. And I mean, so this, have I got a date on it?
It just says best before. It just has a best before date, which is 10/03/32. So
I reckon that's probably got 10 years on it. So it was probably bottled in like,
I think it was last year I got it.
March 22 maybe. So, you know, it's not that old comparatively.
Comparatively, yeah.
You know, so it is still quite young. So you're going to get more of a of that sweet and sour as it develops with age. The balance of this one should be towards the malt, whereas I think with the Flanders Red, the balance is more fruity. Yeah, so it says balance to the malt side, but dominated by the fruity sour wine-like impression. So that
I would
is
agree with that.
Yeah. So that's that's where your flavours change from a red to a brown. Like a red is more fruity and winey, whereas this one's there's more malt and caramel and treacle-y type sweetness in it.
I would say treacle I can sort of get. I don't get the carameliness as much, but I think that's just because of probably their variation of it.
Yeah.
That's where it sort of changed. But I definitely would agree that, I think that checks out with comparing the two. The malt, I feel like the malt bit is, for me, is like the main show in the flavours here.
And it is because the malt bill is different. So the malt bill on a Flanders Red is usually Vienna or Munich malts, some caramels, possibly a bit of Special B, maybe some maize. So they're comparatively lighter malts. Whereas in the Oud Bruin, there's going to be a base of pills, but then there's going to be certain amounts of dark caramels, black or roast malts. So, that you've got your lighter ones to start you out, but then you've got darker roasted ones, which is where we're getting those like leathery and tobacco-y notes from. And this one's also got rye in it, which adds its own spicy little character to it.
I was going to say, the rye for me is what sticks out the most, and I don't know if it's just because I know that that's in there, so that's sort of what my brain looked for, because that is quite a specific sort of taste, so my brain might have just gone, I'm going to go look for that because I know it's there. But I think as far as like the strawberries sort of come towards the back end of it as well, and that's kind of what's there like lingering. It's not so much like the main show. Like I said, it's really, for me, the rye is quite like the main show for me.
Yeah.
And then sort of towards it's quite dry, and then towards the back end, in that dryness, sticks out sort of the strawberry fruitiness that just kind of sticks there, just to enjoy afterwards. And it's just really interesting. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't expect anything less from Holy Goat, to be quite honest with you.
No, I always the thing is, I always want to keep the labels.
Yeah.
And I'm always torn between whether I take it off the bottle or I don't.
Yeah.
Part of me goes do I try doing some arts and crafts where I cut the bottle and then I can use it as a candle holder, and I don't know. Do I try taking the label off, which is what I normally do, but then I kind of go, Do you know when you take a label off and it starts to sort of like fade?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, I wish I hadn't taken the label off. With these labels, they're just always so just beautiful, like just absolutely beautiful designed, that I always kind of go, oh, I don't want the label to fade, and I always have a argument with myself about whether or not to take it off.
Yeah.
This one
it is difficult. Yeah, that's a lovely label. Do you want to hear a bit of history?
Yes, please.
So, Oud Bruin obviously means Oud Brown, and it is indigenous to East Flanders. So, red is in the west, brown is in the east. It is typified by products from the Liefman brewery, which have their roots back to the 1600s. It was historically brewed as a provision beer, so was, so drunk by monks, and it would develop some sourness as it aged. The traditional ones were probably more sour than the current commercial examples that we find today. And where, as I've said, the Flanders Red beers are aged in oak, the brown beers are warm aged in stainless steel. So that makes slightly different, because you're not getting that, because it's in steel, it's cleaner, so you're not necessarily getting that same contribution from the bacteria, though bacteria can be added to it. You're not getting the oakiness. There's other things that come out of oak. If you leave it in there long enough, you can get vanilla flavors, you can get coconut flavors, you can get caramel flavors, depending on how it goes and what else is happening around there. So in steel, it's going to be a lot cleaner.
In steel as well, I imagine there's some level of consistency to a degree, because I feel like if you're doing it in barrels, there's always that element of you can't control everything about the barrel aging. And it's not that you can control everything about the steel aging, but there's less, like you said, there's less for it to cling on to, there's less to be pulled out of steel, so you have to have some level of more consistency with that in flavours than you do when you start putting things in barrels and where they can really draw flavours from. Yeah,
definitely. And I do have a fun fact.
Oh, okay, you got a fun fact for this
one.
Right,
so these beers were a refreshing blended beer that were popular in the Netherlands up until World War One. And at that point, refrigeration and lager beers became really popular. So to kind of combat this, they started brewing a version of lager that was a Flemish brown, and it was tried to use to beat lager, but it didn't really work. It never caught on. But the Dutch still produce an artificially sweetened and coloured lager version of the style, and it's very popular with the elderly, nursing mothers and athletes looking for a sweet pick-me-up. But because it hasn't got caffeine in it, it's like an alternative to cola. It's also called Oud Bruin, but it varies from 2 to 3.5% ABV and is typically low in bitterness to about 12 IBUs.
That just hurt my head trying to process that.
Yeah, so it's basically a sweetened and coloured lager that the elderly, nursing mothers and athletes as a replacement for cola.
Low
ABV.
Because when you were there's no... Yeah, it's low.
There's no caffeine.
ABV.
There is alcohol.
Because when you went, there's no caffeine in it, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe it's not the lager. Because I was thinking immediately, I went, that's popular with nursing mothers and athletes. That's a bit, weird. Older people, I'm like, okay, because they're probably the good old days of when they used to change lager. So, yeah, I don't know. The good old days of when we did that. And then you said athletes and nursing mothers, and I was like, I have additional questions.
I don't have additional answers necessarily.
But there's no caffeine in it. Yeah. And I was like, now I'm confused. Maybe it's not the lager. And then you circle back round to between 2 and 3 whatever percent.
So it's definitely alcoholic.
Confused again.
It's definitely like a lager.
I'm not judging.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking even just an athlete that's I need a pick me up real quick before this race. Give me my artificially sweetened random
lager.
lager thing.
Yeah.
I wonder what it tastes like.
No, I don't know.
Actually curious.
And it's also called Oud Bruin, just to be confusing.
That's gonna be so fucking confusing.
Yeah.
If anyone can get their hands on that, I want to try that.
Yeah, we want to try that.
Now I just have questions. There's nobody that can give me answers other than myself.
Yeah.
Really. That is interesting. That was a fun fact. That was good.
I thought you'd like that one.
I did like that one. That was good. But also, isn't that funny the way that it's still like you can try to take lager down, like lager.
You can try and take lager down, but it's not going
to
happen.
You can take lager down, but it's not going down. It doesn't matter if it has to have artificial sweetness added to it or what. Like, you are not taking lager down.
Like, I don't understand how you would even yeah, so, you know, we're going to take down lager with, like, Oud Bruin. No, mate.
Who do you think? That is so, super niche. Like, that is just the most niche thing. And then to be like, I don't even know. Like, that is just, is all around bizarre. And to be in the room when someone decided, you know what, let's bring back the good old days, but people still like lager, so let's just
colour a lager up,
mess with this a bit.
And I feel like there's got to be some sort of like perceived health benefit, right, as to why that's got, because the fact that like it's like it was marketed to the elderly, nursing mothers, athletes, like that. We're straying into milk stout territory here. I feel like where it's this is going to be good for you.
No, I feel like the old people, it's not about what's good for you. The old people, it's about the nostalgia. They're like, remember when we could just get this, and it was popular before World War One, and that was back in the good old days. The other two, I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
No, I don't know what that's all about.
I
thought you'd enjoy that.
So bizarre, and now I kind of want to try it even more. That is so weird and wonderful. But like, I mean, this is definitely a tangent, but indulge me because we've got some time for it. But do you ever stop and go, what do you think it was like back in the day when these type of things were like the normal beer offerings? Like, do you ever just think about like historical settings and what it was like?
Yeah, like, I mean, but you had no other choice, really, did you? It's not like there was like these other, like, all beers at one point were like brown and smoky because, and probably sour because they weren't being preserved or they'd sat around for too long and they weren't, you know, being sold as quick, or, you know, and until lager came around, there wasn't, and you know, it's that when, you know, technology came around, when they started working on lagers, when they discovered the drum roaster, like, you know, there's all these different things that changed the landscape of beer drastically. You know, I do think about it. Sometimes I'm like, I want to try. Like, sometimes I'm like, I want to try that. You know, that beer when it was like smoky and weird. I want to try that. It's like I had that beer the other week, didn't I? Yeah. I was at a beer festival and there was a brewery that was that had a beer called Teller, which is a traditional brew from Ethiopia. And it's,
that sounded insane, and I wanted to.
Yeah, and it looked like chalky water. Like, I thought it was going to be like a beer colour. It wasn't beer coloured. It was like chalky water. They had it on cask, so it was flat as well. It wasn't even carbonate. There was no carbonation in it. But I'm drinking it, and it was like slightly smoky, cereally. Like, I was just like, this is what it felt like. I was drinking beer from back then, before they had, you know, these crazy hot bombs, and before they had, like, I found it really interesting that it tasted so cereally and that smokiness, but it was white. Like, it was really, like, I was just like, where's the colour from the grain? I was like, where's the colour from the grains? Like, what grains do they use? I suspect it was probably, because I think it was also gluten free, so it must have had like sorghum and, you know, grains like that in it.
interesting.
So,
it's something that can be done.
Yeah, that you can still do that. And it ferments in like a few days as well, apparently. So like it ferments very quickly. But yeah, literally drinking that, I was like, this is like beer before we started chucking hops in it, and we started doing all these things to it. It was really interesting.
So I've never gone to I've always wanted to go, but I've never actually gone to one of those. A Renaissance fair, because they don't have.
Have you never been to one?
No.
I've been to two.
I've never been to one because I always wanted to go. The big one from where I'm from is called King Richard's Fair.
Okay.
And that is like the big one, but it's such a mish to get to because it's like an hour, 2-hour drive. And for in the US, it's not that we are like, oh, I can't drive an hour, 2 hours. But to go to a Renaissance fair, especially when I was younger, and it's like there's so much traffic getting there. It's quite expensive. There's the car journey, and then I don't exactly come from a household where people are into that type of stuff. I am into it now, so it's not like I had parents that were like, yes, King Richard's Fair, let's go. It's very. Yeah, I think people, when we were old enough to drive, people would go, but I just never...
Yeah.
I never went. And then we had a place in Boston that was called Medieval Manor, but that closed down because it was rat-infested and terrible and everything.
Oh, lovely.
Before I ever got a check. It was always that, next year we're going to go, next year we're going to go. And then we never went, and then it shut down. So I've just never gone to any of these places, but I've always thought... On one hand, I always thought it'd be really cool. On the other hand, I also know that I'm like the whole you have to ask permission to go and get up and do, and I'm like, nah. I want to go to the toilet, I'm going to the toilet. And that is just...
Why can't you
I'm like my dad, and both of
us...
You have to so in some of these places, it's if you want to get up and leave, it's you've got to ask permission or something to some of these places that I've heard about. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's not true.
I don't think that's true.
I've heard it's
so I've done...
What is
it? Medieval times? Is it where you go and see the jousting and stuff? I've been to two of those. I went to one in Vegas and I went to one in Tenerife, and I've been to the Miami Renaissance Fair, and I've been to the Tampa Renaissance Fair. Please note I'm saying Renaissance because that's what the Americans call it. Obviously it's actually the Renaissance.
No, I call it so
I say Renaissance Fair because that's what they call it, but actually the word is Renaissance. Don't at me, Brits, please. I know what I'm saying here. The Miami one
in America.
The Miami one is apparently the only one in the US that acknowledges that it is in the New World. So all the others are pretending.
That's so interesting,
right? This is what we were told when we went, right? So it's like we're settlers in in the New World, whereas all the others are pretending that they're in Britain somewhere.
Yeah,
it was really interesting.
Hilarious. That is hilarious. But that's also part of me really wants to go to that thing, but the other part of me is it really winds me the hell up when people that one time that I went to the Viking Museum and they were like, "What is that on your head?" And I was like, "Sunglasses. Just leave me alone. Get out."
Well, so
when they commit so hard to it, I'm like, oh, it really winds me up.
Right. Yeah, no, you're not going to like that then. So we went. So when at the Miami one, it turned out that my friend that I went with used to do Renaissance fairs in Texas, and this was the same kind of people that he'd done Renaissance fairs with before. So we just kept bumping into his mates. It was great. And then the one in Tampa, we had a few ciders. And then I was with my wardrobe supervisor friend, and I started yelling at someone because they were wearing shorts, not trunk hose. And I was like, "What are you doing? Why are you wearing shorts? You are not." And it was they were supposed to be in Henry VIII's court, and I was like, "You would have got kicked out of here for wearing shorts," because they were putting on a show and stuff. And I'm like, "Mate, you cannot be wearing shorts. You need trunk hose. What are you doing? At least make the shorts look like trunk hose, for God's sake."
Do you think on some level people thought that you were super into character because you had a British accent? Do you think people were
They probably did. I mean, I wasn't...
She is super into
I wasn't, we'd done it on a whim, so we weren't dressed up, but these people that were dressed up, I was like, if you're going to do it, can you please commit and wear the correct stuff, please?
I like the idea that people thought you were just super committed, even though you weren't
Probably.
dressed up. But basically, all of this is to say, like,
There were mermaids at that one as well, which I quite enjoyed.
That is cool. Factually, maybe doesn't line up, but it's
In
great.
a tank.
Love it. But yeah, I think personally, like, I've never gone to these things. This is all to say, I've never gone to these things. I think they were really cool, and I'd love to go to one of these things. However, I would pitch this idea of, like, wouldn't it be cool? Because normally I feel like you go to these, that you go to, like, medieval times, whatever. Not that I've gone, but they're like, yeah, you can get a Stella or something. It's like, what would be way cooler would be having some medieval festival or something, and they're like, guess what? We're gonna serve you a Flanders Red or something.
Right,
because historically that feels like, it's like, how cool would that be?
Right.
If you had numerous options and you have, like, think about it this way, of, like, an open air museum where it's like a replica of, like, what an old village was like, and you go into the old tavern and then you can order drinks, but they're, like, historically accurate. How does that sound? Really nerdy.
Like when you go to
I really want
Harry
that.
Potter World
themes.
and you get butterbeer.
I've never gone to Harry Potter World.
Oh God,
we are not. I've realised how many hot takes that I have, not just when I've said it on the podcast, but when I've gone and repeated it at my office. Like, when I've said that frappuccinos are for babies, my whole office was like irate. And I was like, I said what I said, guys, get over it. Or that time I think I said to you Victoria Sponge was, like, the worst. And
God,
and I was like,
I've forgotten about that.
And I said American cakes were better.
Oh God, I forgot. I'd blanked that from my memory because that one was painful.
The trauma. But yeah, I feel like I have a lot of I said what I said moments. You do. But
you do.
But
yeah, because I did
definitely
at the Miami one. I drank, like, German Dunkel.
I would love that.
Yard.
Something that's thematic.
Yard of, though. Obs. And at the Tampa one, we had pumpkin cider.
Love it.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the thing, is if they're acknowledging that this is your settlers in a new world, pumpkin.
Oh no, that's the one that was supposed to be in the UK. That was supposed to be in Britain because it was Henry VIII's court, and I was like, mate.
That is not factually correct.
And Blue Point lager. So I was like, not so much.
But I feel for me that would be the dream, and I feel like that sounds really nerdy. I mean, I can't speak for Harry Potter World. We're not a Harry Potter household, so that's another hot take you can have. But I genuinely feel like if somebody told me I could go to this open air museum and I could go into a pub or a tavern or whatever, and especially the D&D person in me, are you kidding me? I'd be like, D&D session at the place. Let's go. It's happening. I would LARP so quick. Like, it would not take anything. I feel like I love theme so much, and I love this kind of stuff so much, that I genuinely am convinced if I could cosplay, if I had the talent that you have to make outfits, to costume up, I understand entirely how people get into LARP, and I could do it. And for anyone that doesn't know what LARPing is, that's live action role playing. Don't knock it till you try, because I feel like I could do it if I could make myself a costume.
Oh yeah,
I would be so in. I would be like, that's it, done. I'm in it. Like, when I went to Valhalla, the Viking festival, I didn't even get super into costume, but I had them paint my face, and I was like, this is great. This is the best thing ever. I could do this all day. I could throw axes all day. This is amazing.
So it's not like an American Renaissance fair, but Leeds Castle do have, like, jousting sessions and, like, little medieval fairs and stuff. Maybe you need to come down the next time they're having one of those, and we'll take you along.
I found out recently that jousting was still a thing, and I was like, people still joust? This is amazing. But yeah, I would love that. But yeah,
all right, I'll work out when the next one is.
Thank you for indulging me in this tangent, just so I can out myself as being a friggin' nerd. That I'm like...
People already knew you were a nerd. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know. What are you talking about? I'm so suave. I'm so awkward that I didn't even know, like, the right word to say, and I said suave. What does that even... Why? Anyways, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my beers.
Yeah, let's. So Tori, if people want to recommend a Renaissance fair to you, where can they get hold of
You
you?
can tell me where I can go. If you can tell me, especially if there's some place I can go that I can get thematic beverages, alcoholic beverages, and I can really immerse myself. I don't even care if I have to travel to the continental Europe area. I will do it because that is super cool. Yeah, let me know. Let me know there's some cool festivals, or give me some cosplay tips so I can get out and get my LARP on, like the cool person I am. Yeah, you can do that on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism, or on Gmail at adventuresinoptimism@gmail.com. If you want to recommend some more variations of either of these, you can get hold of both of us at a Women's Brew on Instagram, or a Women's Brew podcast at gmail.com. And Joe, if people want your historically accurate tips on how they can do their best cosplay and they can get out LARPing, where can they contact you?
Please do get hold of me.
That's the
I have
takeaway for the
opinions.
Flanders Red episode.
I have opinions.
If you want to learn how to LARP, Joe.
Or if you want to tell me what the connection between Cher and
Yes.
Flanders Red is, I would
Make it
appreciate
up.
that.
It's fine. We don't mind.
Yeah, make it up. We're not going to know the difference.
Best one wins.
You can get hold of me at my beer school, which is Love Beer Learning. We are on I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Pinterest. You're probably going to find me on Instagram. You can come to my website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk, or you can email me lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. Tell me those tenuous Cher and Flanders Red connections, please.
I would love that. Please do it.
Right, so we're going to go drink these lovely beers. On that note, cheers.
Cheers.